Well, good morning, everybody, to another Friday morning. If you're watching live and if you're watching on the video at any stage, welcome to you. I'm Steve Pallas. Today, we're maybe complicating something I know nothing about, which is Esport Friday, with something else I know completely nothing about, don't understand, don't get, and think it doesn't make any sense to me, which is ultra marathon running. So the esports side of it, I'm joined by Cameron Ustlin, and the ultra marathon running side, which is still bizarre to me, joined by ultra marathon runner Michael Duyvestyn. Mick, welcome to the Sports Community live stream.
Thanks, Crystal.
Cam, welcome to you.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night.
Gee, because we're talking about running, Cam. This would be taking you out of your comfort zone, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't run unless there's a ball in front of me and someone else chasing me. That's the only time that I run, basically.
All right, so Mick, just to put a little bit of context into this discussion over the journey, the last, what are we up to, Cam? 24 weeks. We've been exploring esports, and we've been learning about the fact that virtual sports has been crossing over into physical sport, and those two things are combining. And just in the background, you'd be glad that homeschooling's finishing in one more day. So tell us how you got into the physical ultra running first, and then we'll kind of go into the virtual side.
Yeah, okay. So I started off just as a casual jogger, and then probably week by week I started going to parkrun, which is a 5K weekly event in our local community. So I was doing that once a week and running a couple of times a week on my own, and then joined a running club, ran a marathon, and then from there it just got out of hand. I'm now another one of those blokes with a running problem. So I do run a lot and I enjoy it. I find it therapeutical. And I kind of, I've got way out of hand with it. I've run a lot of longer events now, so 100K events. So
got out of hand with
it. Got out of hand after you ran a marathon. That's great.
I thought the jump between a 5K park run and a marathon was out of hand myself.
Actually, I ran a marathon before I ran park run, but that's another story. But yeah, look, I think it does get addictive, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy the release and the time out in the bush. So I run a lot of trails in the national park. So it's a good place to be.
And look, and I find your story absolutely inspirational, and we will at some stage explore that, because you actually ran a marathon at 120 kilos, which I still think phenomenal.
So I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise it.
I'm still not sure about the 5K park run thing, but so one of the things that struck me about the running is the community around running. And a lot of that, running is a very solitary sport in a lot of instances, even though your running group, the Misfits, does run together. A lot of the community is actually virtual and online. So tell us about that, Mick.
Yeah, well, so even our local park run and the Misfits, we're all connected via Facebook or social media in every essence. So while we all, and I think Strava is another connection point too. Like, people are online with Strava all the time. So the way some people, like my wife perhaps, would get online and look at her Facebook feed, I get online and look at people's Strava feed, and I'll look at where they've run, what pace they run at, whether they did a speed session or a long run, where they ran, the photos they've taken. I spend more time looking at people's runs than I do on their Facebook feed, but
well, that's because you ditched Facebook for about 6 months. But so Strava, for those that don't know, is a and Mick, you correct me when I'm wrong, but it's effectively, it's where you might use your GPS to actually map your run, and so you'll record that. It's got the history of your runs, so people comment on the runs, they share their runs, photos, etc., etc.
And they'll share all kinds of different activities. So rock climbers, triathletes, swimmers, bike riders, runners, there's trail walkers in there as well. Everyone any sort of physical activity they share.
So for ultra marathon runner, and you're an ultra marathon runner in Victoria, in metropolitan Melbourne, which means you're limited to a 5Ks from your house. It's not a great thing. So tell us about the Sydney to Melbourne Virtual Ultra Marathon.
Okay, so the idea of the marathon is to recreate the original Westfield Marathon. The two gentlemen that came up with the idea have a regular yearly event called the Backyard Ultra, the Mirrim Wurnit Backyard Ultra, and it is a non-stop event where you run a loop every hour on the hour. You run 4 miles. So it ends up being, I think it's 6.7K, but the idea is that over 24 hours you would run 100 mile. So as the bell rings every hour, and then everybody sets off and runs their 6.7K, which isn't that hard to sort of complete 6.7K in an hour. But as the hours go on, you have to front up at 12:01, 1:01. As soon as the bell goes, you're off. And you've got till the next hour to start again. Now, some of these races have gone in the States. There's one that went for 67 hours. So for 67 hours, people were just running a loop. Wow. The Melbourne one, which is out near a place called Deep Creek, which is what Mirrim Wurnit is the Indigenous name for. I think last year it went for 32 hours, but the event got cancelled because of COVID. So the two gentlemen that came up with the Australian version of it, it's in his backyard, in his paddock, and you've got to cross a stream. It's a pretty hilly course, which if you can see that website there, it's they've got a photo of the actual course on there with people running across the ridge. So when they couldn't run their event, they decided to recreate the Westfield Marathon, which Cliff Young made famous and Yanis Kouros made famous. So their idea being that if you could somehow encapsulate everyone, log in their kilometres every day, give people 100 days to finish the 1,000-kilometre journey on a virtual basis. And each day when we log in, we can then track where we are. And you can look at your Google Maps and you can see, okay, I've run 20 kilometres on just outside of Sydney. You click on your little icon and it takes you to where you are on the Google Maps.
So practically, how does it work? How are you recording the kilometres that you're doing? And you kind of blew a fetlock in this, Mick, and you've been handed a run. So the doctor says rest. So before the 11 a.m. live stream today, you've already walked 16 kilometres, which Cam, have you clocked that much up in a year? I'm pretty sure I haven't.
Well, sometimes I might get a few Ks in when I'm playing Pokemon Go. You know, that's
nice.
Yeah, so practically, Mick, how do you record? How do you register? How do you plot your kilometres?
So I run on with a GPS watch, and that records how far I've gone and where I've gone. And then there's a login site which we go by this, and it's just verified via your GPS. At a really basic level, they're working off an honesty system. I mean, there's no prize money involved. We're just involved because there's no events running. So I think there's over 400 runners. So it's got quite a following. And initially I was doing fairly well. I was in the top 15 there for a good while, but then I pulled a hamstring. So now I'm slipping down every day. Getting further and further behind.
Now, this is an area I want to explore, because when you say you were doing well, for a period of time you were leading, which I want to explore this because
I was only leading for the first hour.
Yeah. Hold that thought though, but because this is another area I find moronically stupid, right? So you got up at the race started at midnight. Now, for those that are a little bit younger than us, Mick, so Cam, I'm pretty sure you may not even know who Cliff Young is or Yanis Kouros, but back in the 80s, Westfield Marathon, the biggest Westfield in Sydney, the run to the biggest Westfield in Melbourne, 63-year-old Cliff Young shuffled his way down in gumboots to win. Yanis Kouros, the Greek, didn't sleep the following year. All sorts of drama. It was great. But that was 83, right? So So then, Mick, this race comes up, the Sydney to Melbourne ultra marathon race. So it starts at midnight. So you get up at midnight, you get on your treadmill, I think it was, you dress up as Cliff Young, but not only do you dress up as Cliff Young, but at the time, one of our favourite singers, Greg Champion, wrote a song in the early 80s about Cliff Young. You couldn't find this song, so you rang Greg Champion and said, where's this song? I need this song because I'm going to get up at midnight and I'm going to lead this race. That is moronic. You're in your house by yourself wearing gumboots listening to an 80s buddy hippie song. How did this happen? I don't get it. But you weren't the only one doing this. I just called it damn.
Yeah, don't blow a gasket on me. I think it's one of those things that we haven't had any events, and the ultra running community is really tight. People are like you go to a sufferfest, really. Any event that we run and you're running over a marathon distance is an ultra, and to finish some of those runs, you actually have to go to a pretty hard spot, and you suffer and you run with people and you spend time on the trails with people who are going through a lot to get to a finish. And we might not necessarily all be fast, but we're all sharing that experience of shared journey, pain, whatever it is that we want to get to that finish line. And that makes us probably more connected than others in some ways, so that when it comes to an online race like this, which is virtual, there are a lot of people there's 400 people there. A lot of people aren't from my local area, but there are a heap of people that I know and that I've run with in the past or I've met at different ultra events. And I suppose we feed off each other when it gets to that. We get a little bit excited about the fact that we're going to get a chance to do something together. And that's how it eventuates, where you go, okay, well, maybe I'll do something funny and I'll get up at midnight and I'll run in the Cliff Young gear, for instance. So that first day, the Facebook page there was hundreds and hundreds of posts of everyone taking photos of what they did for the first day. So everyone's, where did you run your first run? And a lot of the people are from Victoria because we're all in lockdown, but there's people in the UK, there's people in New Zealand, there's people from all over the world running. There's one gentleman in Hong Kong who is trying to go all the way around the world without getting on a plane. And he got to Australia. He'd gone through Australia and he'd moved to Hong Kong via a ship. And then he was trying to go to every single country in the world. And so he's seen this and he's joined in and he's stuck in Hong Kong. He's been there for 6 months. So he's like doing an ultra marathon from Sydney to Melbourne virtually whilst he's in Hong Kong, locked down in a B&B, like a backpackers in Hong Kong, trying to get his way forward. So it's an interesting community, but yeah, we are all a bit nuts.
Well, and speaking of community, I'd like to welcome our community. Gary, welcome to you. You're an avid follower of Esport Friyay and a great supporter of sports community. So the Isabella Ruse loves a long run, love the Barkley Marathon, Netflix documentary. So there is a lot of Netflix, a lot of documentaries on this ultra marathon running thing. So the community itself, Mick, it seems to feed off each other. We were talking before. Cam mentioned that someone had already finished the race, so it's a 100-day race, and what would we day 20 probably, if that.
Yeah, we're up to day 17 today.
Yeah, day 17, and so someone's already finished. But you knew that the person that already finished was a guy from the UK that had done it on a treadmill. So the community really does create that connection from all over the world, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And Nathan, the gentleman who ran it, he was raising money for I think it's his daughter who's got some rare disease. Anyway, he ran 100 kilometres a day on a treadmill, and he posted videos of himself running. And I think his last post, he actually said, "I'm breaking up with my treadmill." So I can't imagine spending that much time on a treadmill. It's hard work doing an hour on a treadmill, let alone 100K a day. That's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no,
incredible.
we would tend to agree with that. So
So-
and again, Cam, what we like to do each week in Esport Friday is go, well, what do we learn from the session, and how does that apply to community sport and building our community? Because here's a for want of better terminology, a community of people that's worldwide. Like, there's no reason that our clubs need to just limit themselves to their local communities. So, Mick, is this something that you could see clubs in creating these sort of, pre-season activities where clubs are, setting themselves challenging, staying connected pre-season, off-season, etc., and keep that connection between their community, their club, build that connection broader than just their own club?
I would think for sure. I think, there's several layers of it. You will connect with your Facebook group, and then everybody's sharing their activities and feeding off each other's energy. And then I've got mates that we live close by to, and his 5 kilometre radius overlaps with mine on the golf course. So we go and run 18 holes. But we had one of the ideas we had was to try and run 99 holes of golf over 4 hours, because if we started at, say, 10 o'clock at night, then we could use our 2 hours for that day and then use our 2 hours for the next day from midnight till 2. So we'd have a 4-hour block to try and run as many holes as we could. And we sort of thought maybe we could do 99 holes of golf just for a laugh.
How's the greenkeeper feel about that?
Yeah, greenkeeper, they don't like it when you run on their little greens. It's grass. I don't know how anyway, it's a whole other story, isn't it? I think, for me, if you think about what connects people, it's that energy can feed off one another, and you can take it to another level. And there's so many things that get organised organically, without sort of. But if you did put a structure around it as a club and gave people the opportunity to work within it, then you'd find it grow pretty exponentially, depending on how tight fit they are too. But
yeah. So have you found it? I wouldn't know, but I'm assuming running 1,000 kilometers in 100 days is quite challenging. There'd be days where you have your down days. Has it been motivating? Has it been part of the motivation to get up and get going? Just the fact that you got to log in, connect with your community. Is it motivating like that, or is it self-motivation that's just driving you?
I think it's a bit of both. But we have, like all our local club, there's probably 6 of us doing it from a local club, and then there's probably another 10 that I know from Parkrun. And I do know that we've all kept in contact via direct messenger. And even last night, there was people saying, I'm finding it difficult at the moment. Like, this is a long way to go. And trying to get 10 kilometres every day is sometimes a bit of a battle. So the support within that group was really quite good, as far as people are supporting each other, going, just walk your 10, take a rest day here, you've got time. People support each other to get through it. So there is that factor that helps. But, it depends how competitive you are too. Like, it bothers me when I look on that leaderboard and I see myself slipping down. You want to do as best you can. So I would have loved to have kept pace with, if you can see on that front page, Kiwi P, which is Pete, one of my mates. I think he's just inside the top 10. What is he now? Is he 9th?
What do we got? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, with 500Ks as well. It's amazing.
Okay, and Giannis is always there. He's a faux runner. He's not the real runner. So they just put him in so that no one could beat him. So he's actually one higher than that. So he's in the top 10, and we were running pretty much the same each day. I was a couple of kilometres behind him. So now I'm on the next page, and maybe the page after that now, I think. So, there I am there, 4272. That's me. So I've done 380.
So when you're looking at, and again, we'll just come back to say pre-season, Cam, where for many sports and many clubs, there is a requirement just to simply get kilometers in the legs. This is actually a really good way of stimulating that, making that process fun, or creating an off-season, bit of an activity that the competitive juices kick in, and Mick, if I was going to put on a scale of ultra competitive to ultra social, I'd kind of put you right in the middle. So I wouldn't even put you in that ultra competitive kind of group of people that as soon as you put a leaderboard up there, they're like a lot of the sports that would be doing those sort of pre-seasons and competitors are. So I think COVID's inspired us or required us to do a lot of things differently. But I would think something like this from a club level in a pre-season, off-season is just a magnificent way to keep people connected to their club and keep people, if you have to do a certain work level in the off-season, I think this is a really great way of doing it. You can either do it individually, come together in groups, do it together. It creates a whole lot of flexibility that people's lives can work around, Mick, and you love it.
Yeah, and it's a connection point with everybody, so you kind of follow each other, don't you?
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of things that come into this as well for sporting clubs. There's the lack of facilities sometimes during your off season where you can't come together. This gives you an opportunity to do that. The barriers, I imagine, are quite small for being able to be tracking your data. It's becoming very common that people have, if it's not your smartphone, you have a little Fitbit or one of the tracking watches, or you've got an iWatch. It's becoming a lot more common. So the barriers in place that you might think of getting people as a group to do something like this are disappearing as time goes by. So there's a whole bunch of different things that kind of come together about making this a good idea for clubs to look at this kind of virtual opportunity.
I mean, you could run that simply for a club. They could run it off they could do a Strava group, and then they could just log it on their phones or their watches if they have them, and then you can have it closed off just to that club.
Yeah.
So there's clubs within Strava that just you can follow only those people. So you could recreate that as well.
And Ken, we're just learning this as well. That's the other thing I am realizing through this. In the same as you showed us, what was the free game? What's the one that you play that you showed us last week, which is now
I remember Rocket League.
Rocket League. So I can't believe I forgot that. As you showed us last week in Rocket League, there's a whole lot of infrastructure that's just there that clubs can just leverage off, and same with Strava. And that's what we're learning is we can just leverage off. Now, you mentioned, Mick, you just kind of flicked over it, but it's not just running. You mentioned swimming and rock climbing, and how else have you seen the Strava community? What other sports or activities have you seen Strava communities created around, or physical exercise activity?
Well, I only know of the rock climbing one because I didn't know that you could do it. But then I follow a couple of guys that are ultra runners from Colorado, and in Colorado, rock climbing is massive. It's as big as anything. So those guys post every now and then rock climbing feats that they've done, and it's a different way of recording it. And then if you look on their feed, it's like going down a rabbit warren. It's like, holy moly, it's just a whole different community and a different group of people communicating with their own sort of languages and set of norms, and it's just very different. I mean, even if you look at the culture of the bike riders and the way they communicate versus runners is different. A lot of the bike riders will have segments, what they call a segment. So they try and beat each other on segments. It doesn't happen as much with the running. Segments is a real riding thing, but it's still under the same banner or medium. Yeah.
Yeah, so it allows, and again, it allows us to, when we say virtual, it doesn't necessarily mean a screen, does it? So it allows us to set courses. It could be a triathlon course, for instance, a swimming, riding, running, it allows us to set the course, and then people do the course as it suits their lifestyle, record it. I've got one of those watches because someone makes me run these days, but set the course, you record it, and it's a good way for coaches to be recording what the workload. People like your good self go too far, and so they can pull them back a little bit. And there's so many positives, I think, that are just fantastic for clubs.
Yeah, a club coach could use this flat out, like Strava as a medium. Yeah, you could set time trials up and have people do it. I mean, they could also get on the bus, a la Cowboy Neil. But anyway, there's an element of honesty in the system.
Oh, of course, or Val Perovic swim across Albert Park Lake, or I can't remember who caught the tram, but Cam, you've just brought up Strava and just looking at the different ways that it's being used by different communities, which just opens up so many different ways of, again, if we're coming at it from the coaching perspective of creating those activities that can be flexible to an individual's life, but can be monitored and competitive if need be. It's a wonderful thing. And so your running club, so you are a part of a running club that actually you have got completely integrated the virtual and the physical into the way your club runs. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an interesting conversation in itself, in that it's not a formal club. It's just an informal group of people that meet under the auspice of a Facebook community group. So we're not an incorporated club of any sort. We're just a group of like-minded people that enjoy running, and that we regularly meet 4 times a week for a run.
Yeah, and stay connected.
Yeah.
Has technology driven the group, or have you had to adapt using technology?
I think originally the group was connected just by friends and word of mouth, but then once the Facebook group got up and running, there's more and more people have joined, and then come and, because they post where we're going to run on the Facebook page, people will just turn up. So there's 99 active members in the Facebook group, but there'd be probably a group of 20 that run every week over Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then on a Sunday, we can have anywhere, there'd be another 35 people that might turn up on a Sunday. There's never that many, but there's some of us that run every day, and then there's some that run once a week or twice a week, or they might have to work at different points. So everyone turns up at different times.
Brilliant. Well, there's another 30 minutes just flown by on Esport Friday, and again, it just staggers me every week, Cam, that we talk virtual, finish with physical, and there's so many things that just are continually transferable from one to the other. And I think your club, your group, which again is indicative of society, a little bit less structure, highlights it really well, Mick. So Mick, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story about your now slower than you would want journey from Sydney to Melbourne, albeit virtually.
I got to keep getting out there and walking in the rain.
Are you a third of the way in with less than more than 2/3 of the time left? So I think you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I was hoping to finish by the first cup weekend, so it might not happen now. But anyway, we'll see how we go. Hopefully I can get back running soon.
Yes, I hope you can too, because it's making my couple of kilometres every second day a lot harder, I've found.
You're still going?
I am still going, yes.
Still doing your isometrics?
I am still doing my isometric, yes.
Good.
So just before we head off, Cam, my 50th birthday last year, and you got all these presents, and Mick's present to me was an entry into running up Arthur's Seat, for God's sake, after I'd spent 15 years on the couch drinking beer, watching sport. So that's actually not a present for a single day, because obviously an unfit, dude like myself can't just run up Arthur's seat without any preparation. So, every second day, Mick's dragging my sorry butt out and running 4 or 5Ks very slowly. So to make sure that he can keep up, I can keep up. He runs 25 before we do my final 4. So
well, for any motivator, Steve, I've ridden up that hill along that windy road. So maybe you can tick a box that I've already done in some way, shape, or form. So how's that? Me, the non-running, non-active Cameron, I've gotten in there before you.
Yeah, it must have
It's
been
harder to ride up than it is to run up.
Yes. Well, on that note, that's it for another week. So for those that love Richmond like myself, good luck. Those that are following the netball, good luck. Those that are following the rugby league, good luck. The NFL over in America is hit by COVID again, so make sure our clubs don't become COVID clusters, and the NBA's running its course. So until next week, I'm Steve Pallas, Mike Duyvestyn. Thanks for joining us, and always, Cam, thank you for being our esport guru. So until next week, thank you for being part of our sports community. Oh, I never